Hey guys, homeless looking white person in Japan here. You know, I always preferred the countryside, even when I was living back home in good old Norway. You know, I used to live kind of rurally, well, 1 hour outside of the capital of Oslo, but you know, it's still kind of rural in Norway because, you know, it's woods everywhere. Here in Japan though, I live in the backwoods of a prefecture called Okayama. Heard of it? Probably not, because most tourists never go here. The only reason a tourist would ever stop in Okayama is to change the Shinkansen bullet train at our big train station to go to, you know, Hiroshima and to Kyushu, right? There's no reason to be here. I used to live in Osaka for a couple of years back in the day, and it is still my favorite big city in Japan. Fuck Tokyo, overrated piece of shit, idiot, trash city. But I was kind of happy when my wife got some work in Okayama. She is from this prefecture, and we decided to move. Sure, you know, I had to forego some conveniences, you know, being able to order food in. I can't do that here because we're literally in a mountain in the middle of nowhere. Also, living in Osaka, you know, Osaka is called Japan's kitchen for a reason. I could literally walk 1 minute from my apartment there and have just a bunch of good food, which, you know, didn't really help with my obesity all that much. Sure, it's fun and all to live in like a big city and experience that stuff, but there are more benefits to living in the countryside than you would imagine, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it right now. One really positive thing about living in the countryside versus living in a big city is definitely the amount of money that you save on rent. I remember living in Osaka. I didn't live in a Umeda or like any fancy, you know, part of the city there. I lived in Tennoji, which is close to Nishinari, which is, you know, the biggest, it's kind of like the Skid Row of Japan, right? So I wasn't, you know, living it up in the most prime places. But even so, even in that location, a reasonably sized apartment, kind of expensive. I think I paid around 100,000, maybe 110,000 yen per month, which is absolutely ridiculous for a 2 LDK. My first apartment here in the countryside of Okayama, I paid 60,000 yen. Roughly $570, I think, per month. Utilities included. For a 3 LDK. I had a guest room, I had 2 floors, I had my own office, and a huge living room. It was great. And for that price, it's almost unbeatable. Now, if you want to have that same size, not even in the center core of Tokyo, you will have to pay upwards of maybe 150,000 yen, which is absolutely bonkers. So the countryside in Japan will let you save money almost passively by, you know, just saving so much on rent. And you might think, oh yeah, well, Mr. White Man in Japan, maybe, you know, the salaries are much higher in Tokyo. Nah, not that much. So with that information, I just don't understand why somebody would want to live long-term in Tokyo. Remember, I lived in a big city, Osaka, for a couple of years, and I really enjoyed myself, but hot diggity damn, saving some money by living in the countryside, baby. Of course, living in a smaller town in Japan will mean that you most likely will be like a dispatch assistant language teacher, so you have to travel a little bit around, or you can work remotely. Yes, it's 2023 right now, and Japan kinda caught up a little bit because of the pandemic. And because of that, you know, what happened between 2021 and now, Japan was kind of forced to be able to let people work remotely. I have seen a bunch of people being able to just sit at home with a shitty webcam and a much worse mic than me and make a living. And the best part is that even these companies in Japan that allow you to do remote work, they will also sponsor your visa so you can live in Japan without actually having to go to work. You can do it from your very cheap apartment in the countryside. Now who's winning at life, huh? Yes, you can now live in Japan and teach English online while still having your visa sponsored for you. You don't even need to get married like I did. And that makes it all the better when it comes to working from a mountain surrounded by bamboos in the Inaka. Inaka means countryside in Japan, or rural. I don't really remember. One of those. Rural countryside. Inaka. Now, of course, living in the countryside as a foreigner is kind of hard at first. I'm not going to lie. If you live in a place where there are little to no foreigners other than you, people are going to stare at you if you don't pass for like Japanese, you know, pale Asian. My first apartment here in countryside Okayama, all my neighbors were Vietnamese workers, right? So I was kind of I had to find like a foreigner-friendly apartment, and you know, I stayed there with the rest of the foreigners in this tiny town, right? But even so, me looking like I do, I'm pretty tall. I'm like 6'3" for you Americans, 190 centimeters approximately for everyone else in the world that doesn't use Imperial. I'm tall, bearded, tattoos. Of course, old people are gonna be afraid of me. They are back home too. But you know, when you're on like the 3rd month here and people still like, they approach you on the sidewalk and then they cross the street to avoid you, and you look back and they cross back after they passed you, kind of makes you feel a little shitty. But although this might feel awkward at first, living in a small community makes it way easier for people to recognize you. Imagine if you just stroll around in Tokyo, you're just one of many foreigners, many white-faced assistant language teachers dreaming about becoming a J-vlogger. But if you're living in a 5,000 population small town in the middle of nowhere, people will start recognizing you automatically while you're out walking. Suddenly, you know, this happened to me. Even the racist old Japanese guy who actually spat on the floor when I passed his house, he started, konnichiwa, and waving to me. So, you know, you can win people's hearts over as long as they get used to you. That is also a very, very good lesson for life in general. So if you really want to integrate yourself in Japan, you really can't beat the countryside, in my opinion. Like, you get to know your community and they get to know you, and suddenly they'll start talking to you, you get to practice your Japanese a little bit. Suddenly it's like, konnichiwa, chotto biru nomitai ne, biru arimasu yo, wa, kanpai. If you, despite everything that I've said here in this little video, decide to, you know what, fuck you bearded, white, homeless looking man, I'ma go and live in Tokyo. Remember that Osaka is a million times better. Kyoto is close by, Kobe is close by, Hyogo is close by. It's just so much better. West Side, Kansai gang, baby. Fuck you, Tokyo. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want more Japan content like this and better content coming up, there is a subscribe button down there. It's free, and yes, I said button. Also, if we can get 15 likes on this video, I will do a home barbecue vlog and show you guys some nice meat, how I eat my meat. No, I did not say beat my meat, I said eat my meat. If you want to see me beat my meat, that'll be in my OnlyFans in like 5 years when I'm washed up. Okay, bye.